I've been beating the game with all of the commander's aces. I started with Perugly, then moved to Skuntank, and now it's time for Toxicroak. These are the rules for the solo challenge. They're in the description if you need to check them later. In Pokemon Platinum, I'm evolving during these playthroughs and I'm always using hardy natures. So Croagunk, the poison fighting type, starts with the base stats 48 HP, 61 attack, and special attack, 40 defense, and 40 special defense. It has 50 speed, so it's kind of just not good at anything. It's more offensive than defensive, but it is a balanced attacker. And that's pretty good with its starting set. Astonish and Mud Slap, a physical move and a special move. However, these two moves in combination with each other don't give me particularly great early game type coverage. I'll talk about that in 1 second. First, I have to face the rival. I had to decide which starter he was going to pick to go up against me. In this case, I have given him Turtwig, which at first seems like it makes no sense since it's a grass type Pokemon. Although I do really want to emphasize this fight, which I normally skip over, just because the little grass turtle ends up being quite a wall for Croagunk because it can set up with Withdraw and then take less and less damage from Astonish, which is the move I want to attack it with. I could use Mud Slap for special damage, but the ground type move is resisted. Another thing that could potentially factor into the rival's choice is which ability I decide to go with. In this case, I have assigned Croagunk Dry Skin. This is important, it will come up later. The other option that I had available to me was Anticipation, which essentially lets you know if the enemy has a super effective move on their current set. But that's not very useful in these challenges when I can see the enemy's moves on the right hand side of the screen. Dry Skin actually has a practical benefit in these solo challenges because it's going to make Crasher Wake, who is usually the most difficult gym leader, basically trivial, because Croagunk and Toxicroak are going to be healed by water type moves instead of taking damage. The downside to having this ability is that if Sunny Day is used, then I'll take damage every turn, and if a fire type move hits me, it will do 25% more damage. But taking a cursory glance at all of the trainers in Pokemon Platinum, the fire type specialist is Flint, and he is really bad normally, so I wasn't scared of him. I think Dry Skin might make the Monferno line just a little bit better against Croagunk, but overall I went with Turtwig since the Torterra line has the ground type at the end of the game, which is super effective against poison types. I'll come back to this point later in the challenge and revisit it. Now in the first patches of grass that I have to run through, I encounter a Starly. This is a Pokemon that Croagunk currently can't do damage to. Astonish doesn't work against normal types and Mud Slap doesn't work against flying types. If I want to do damage to it, I have to run into a bunch of Bidoof, knock them out using Mud Slap, level up to 8, get Poison Sting, and then attack the Starly. There is a solution to this right around the corner though. After I talk to the professor, he gives me the Return TM, which I teach to Croagunk right away. It has a base power of 41 because did you know that Croagunk has a base friendship of 100? He's just a happy little guy apparently. Although when I look at this Pokemon, I think it's gonna hate the trainer. It looks really angry. With Return, I can attack the Starly, weaken it, and then catch it as one of my HM users. Now for the early game, I'm gonna be doing as much training as possible, fighting every single wild Pokemon that shows up now that I have Return, as well as battling every single optional trainer. I need to make Rourke as easy as possible. And my move pool options for him are not great. I get Taunt at level 10, Pursuit at 15, Feint Attack at 17, but both Pursuit and Feint Attack are physical in Generation 4. All the way at level 22, Croagunk gets its first and only level up fighting move, Revenge. But I hope that I can beat Rourke before I get there. After defeating all the trainers north of the city, I pick up the Quick Claw and then I go up against the rival again. This time I do have Poison Sting, but now Return has a higher effective power, so coming back to the type matchup here, the Poison type is not really that good against the Grass type, at least in this case. I'll have to wait to a much higher level when I get access to Poison Jab or Sludge Bomb to actually deal significant damage to the Turtwig line. And if it's evolved to Torterra by that point, the ground type resists the poison type. Because of that, the poison type will once again only deal neutral damage. Youngster Michael's next. He got me last time around with his biting Kricketot. This time it isn't able to get Croagunk because Return's doing half. Well, it uses Growl, so I don't knock it out on the next turn, but I would have been able to knock it out if it went for a first turn bide. Inside Orberg Mine, I get to fight a Geodude and see how much damage Mud Slap is doing to it. Now, this rock ground type has really low special defense, so the ground type move, which is super effective, one-shots. Now that Geodude was level 6. There's another one in here that's level 9, and I'm able to two-shot it, which is looking pretty good for damage ranges against Rourke. To have more damage against him, I could teach Rock Smash, but I don't want to do that if I can avoid it since the move deleter is all the way in Canalave City. Inside the gym, there's a level 11 Geodude, which I almost am able to two-shot. I would have if I was over the damage rounding threshold at level 15, which I get from the next battle. I teach Pursuit in the place of Poison Sting. While the status condition could be useful, I think I'm just going to be spamming Mud Slap against Rourke. So I didn't want to level up more on wild Pokemon and chance another shiny Machop. Instead, I'm just going to fight Rourke and see how it goes. Up first is Geodude, it's level 12, I'm over the damage rounding threshold at 15, and Mud Slap is able to 2-hit. It just set up Stealth Rock, so I didn't take any damage. He sends in his ace Cranidos next. Mud Slap looks like it's doing about a third, but I don't think I'm going to 3-shot, and Headbutt is doing a lot of damage. But on my second turn, Croagunk gets a critical hit, bringing the Cranidos down to red health. It also starts missing its moves because I'm lowering its accuracy every time I use Mud Slap. While it does take 2 more turns to knock out, it doesn't deal more damage. Croagunk levels up to 16 and all that's left is Onix. This thing's kind of incompetent. With 3 hits from Mud Slap, I knock it out and earn myself the first gym badge. In the Ravaged Path, I pick up the TM for Rock Tomb. This is going to be very important later on because there is one Pokemon that my planned set will not be able to deal damage to. I'm going to keep it in my bag for now. I level up to 17 fighting some trainers before Floroma Town. This lets me learn Feint Attack in the place of Pursuit. Okay, after fighting every optional trainer, I am now going up against Commander Mars at level 18. The Zubat can't use Toxic because of my typing. I 2-shot it using Return and then move on to the Purugly. It does damage with Fake Out. I'm holding an Oranberry so I can recover some health, but her ace is just doing too much damage and Croagunk isn't doing enough, so I end up going down. The solution here is to just throw sand in the Purugly's face with Mud Slap. By doing this, it's eventually going to miss some scratches and I'll be able to luck my way through the battle without having to grind on wild Pokemon. I wasn't sure that I would be able to do this on my first attempt back, but I do pull it off, so that's it for her. Let's proceed north towards Eterna Forest. On my way, I'm going to fight most of the optional trainers, but I'm not going to go too far out of my way. I figured that Gardenia was going to be very easy with my poison type. And she's not going to be easy, but we'll get to that in a second. With my confidence intact, I made quick work of the Pachirisu girl, and then skipped optional training prior to Eterna City. As Cheryl departs, she gives me the Soothe Bell, and I equip this to Croagunk to raise its friendship as quickly as possible. Inside the gym, I just barely don't level up to 24, but over 23's damage rounding threshold. Again, I felt very confident. So let's take a look at Gardenia. Up first is Turtwig, the Pokemon the rival has that I've spent a bunch of time talking about in this video. Gardenia's Turtwig specifically is really annoying to fight with Croagunk. I have to attack it with physical moves because Mud Slap doesn't make any sense. It has Reflect so it can raise its physical defense and take less damage every turn. And while I have learned Revenge by this time, which is a decreased priority move that has its power boosted to 120 if the opponent has attacked first, this move isn't great here. It's not doing that much damage. Plus, the Turtwig has Sunny Day, so then it can chip away at me because of my Dry Skin ability. I finish off the Turtwig, have a chance to learn Swagger, which I say no to. Cherrim comes out, I'm just not doing enough damage and it gets me with Magical Leaf. I tried again, and the fight basically goes identically to the previous one, with Croagunk losing to Cherrim. I went back to the previous route and fought Fisherman Zachary. By the way, he has 2 Magikarp, they're not a threat, but the Goldeen ends up being so annoying, and Croagunk almost faints. I was really lucky to pull through this one. The experience from this battle levels me up to 24, and I decided to teach Swagger in the place of Mud Slap. I think this move is what I need to defeat Gardenia. I can then confuse the Turtwig, increase its attack stat so it'll deal more damage to itself, and hopefully by doing this, I can knock it out eventually. Just so you know, you can use Swagger multiple times even if the opponent is already confused. Each time it increases the attack stat by 2 stages. I tried this strategy and it does not go well because then Razor Leaf is doing more damage every turn. In the next battle, things go according to plan. The Turtwig hits itself, then Revenge gets a critical hit and knocks out her lead in 2 turns, so I have full health for the Cherrim. I was hoping this would be what I needed. Now, it does allow me to get to her Roserade, but I have less than ideal health, just above half, and the Roserade is doing significant damage every turn too. If I'm trying Swagger, then I have the chance to miss, which is what happens here, so I take another loss. Alright, I didn't expect this poison type to have problems with the grass type gym leader. Maybe this is my fault because of Dry Skin, but still, with the ability Anticipation, I think I would be having problems here. The issue really comes down to the fact that I just don't have good poison type moves at this point in the game. And if we look at Croagunk's full level up set, it does get good poison type moves eventually, but it's not really that centered around fighting and poison type moves in general. It seems much more like this Pokemon was supposed to be a dark type, especially because at level 36, it gets what must be the best dark type move in the entire game, Nasty Plot, which raises your Pokemon's special attack by 2 stages. I'm actually really excited to use this move because I haven't really had a chance to use it before. I did a backport in Pokemon Crystal on stream once with Honchkrow. It had Nasty Plot and it absolutely destroyed that game. So since this is my second time using it, I just can't wait. But it is level 36 and I'm only level 24 right now, so it's not going to be the solution to Gardenia. I do some training west of the gym. This brings Croagunk up to level 25 over a damage rounding threshold, and then I return to Gardenia to try my luck again. Things aren't going really good. The Turtwig does a lot of damage before I knock it out. I'm left with 16 health, and while I do make it past the Cherrim, then the Roserade gets me. By the way, there are some mistakes while I'm fighting Gardenia where she's established Safeguard and I'm still spamming Swagger. This is simply a mistake where I wasn't reading the text of Safeguard. I'm just like, no, keep using Swagger. I really need to confuse and then get them to hit themselves so they're not doing massive damage to Croagunk. I took 2 more losses here, but I think I probably could have pulled it off at level 25 with a little bit of good luck. In the end, I decided to go back, revisit the previous routes, and fight all the trainers that I had skipped. There's not that many. Defeating everyone in the forest brings Croagunk to level 26. Defeating everyone on the previous route brings me to level 27, and then I grind on wild Pokemon over the next damage rounding threshold at level 28. I'm still using Swagger to knock out the Turtwig because it's hopefully going to prevent Reflect and Sunny Day. Then on the Cherrim, I'm going to use Swagger again. After that, Revenge to knock it out. Last is Roserade. I'm still not faster than it, but this time it started to prioritize Stun Spore, a move that I haven't seen it use before. As a result of the status condition, I take another loss. This fight is so frustrating. I absolutely hate Gardenia right now. Oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be one of the easy battles. Apparently Pokemon Platinum is just dedicated to making the early game absolutely awful for every Pokemon. If we're following the trend of this game then, the late game is going to be exceptionally easy. So what I needed to win this fight is good luck against the Turtwig so that it doesn't establish either Reflect or Sunny Day. Then Swagger on the Cherrim, it hits itself once, and I can use Revenge to knock it out over 2 more turns. This gives Croagunk green health by the time it moves on to the Roserade, and now Return at level 28 is doing significant damage. It's going to be able to 3-hit. Well, it takes a few more because she does use a potion. I got lucky here because her ace did not choose to use Stun Spore. Because of that, I knock it out, and finally I've earned myself the 2nd badge. Okay, back to the old chateau. Here, I pick up the Insect Plate. I thought this might be useful since Croagunk does learn X-Scissor later on when I get access to the TM. That said, I will have a choice to make, which is, do I want to use Nasty Plot or do I want to prioritize physical moves? For now, I'm going to be prioritizing physical moves, because I can also pick up the Dread Plate as well as Substitute. These 2 items synergize together very well with Feint Attack, especially when Fantina is the next gym leader. So I teach Substitute in the place of Swagger, and I equip the Dread Plate right away to improve Feint Attack's damage. Unfortunately for me, Feint Attack is not a good move against Commander Jupiter. Her Zubat is kind of scary because it has Wing Attack, which is super effective, and then I'm left with just above half health for the Skuntank. It's using Night Slash, doing decent damage, and I'm prioritizing Return because I was hoping to 3-hit. I didn't think Revenge would do better than that. Because of the Citrus Berry, I just barely don't have enough health to knock out her ace. So the solution to it is to use Revenge for more damage every turn. This allows Croagunk to just barely pull through with only 5 hit points remaining. I level up where I have a chance to learn the move Mud Bomb, but I decided against it since it deals special damage. Next is Wayward Cave. Here I grab a rare candy, and then I pick up Earthquake. By the way, when I was streaming, I found out that I don't have to bike quite so far to get over this last little ledge to grab the TM, so this is now easier for me. Now, while Earthquake is a fantastic ground type move, it would be premature to teach it right now, since all of Fantina's Pokemon have Levitate. Once I arrive in Hearthome City, I go to Amity Plaza to pick up the Spooky Plate. This could be useful to boost the damage of ghost type moves later on, but it won't have utility right now. Feint Attack plus the Dread Plate is crushing the random ghost trainers inside the gym, so I should be totally fine against Fantina. Duskull is first. Look at that, I got it right for once. I use Substitute, so it's always going to whiff Will-O-Wisp. Also, you might be worried about Future Sight here since it is a Psychic type move, and Croagunk and Toxicroak's typing mean that they take 4 times damage from Psychic moves. However, Future Sight does not deal damage based on type effectiveness. It simply calculates raw damage based on stats and then never gets the type multiplier. Still though, there is a Psychic type move in this fight. Mismagius, which is next, has Psybeam. Now, it's faster than Croagunk, which is a big problem, and it's by 12 speed, so it breaks my Substitute and Feint Attack isn't able to one-shot. Because of that, it gets one more Psybeam in, and that's enough to finish me. The solution here is pretty simple. I need the Quick Claw. Then I can move first against the Mismagius. If I do on one of 2 turns, then I will be able to knock it out. Or Croagunk could just get a critical hit and one-shot the Mismagius, which is what happens here. Because of that, I move on to the Haunter, which I thought I was going to one-shot. It has low physical defense, but it just barely hangs on, luckily missing Hypnosis. She uses a Super Potion, but luckily it doesn't heal enough, so my next Feint Attack gets me the win. I'm going to grab the Shell Bell today. This item hasn't been that useful in Pokemon Platinum challenges up until now, but I think it's better than the Quick Claw, at least for the next section of the game. And by the way, I am really happy I picked this item up. We will talk about that later. With Fantina defeated, I'm now going to teach Earthquake in the place of Feint Attack, and then go up against the rival. This is usually a really difficult battle, and it's no different today. The Staravia can use Endeavor after taking 2 hits, drain my health, and then use Quick Attack to knock Croagunk out. This is Pokemon Platinum. I'm probably not going to need all of my rare candies for the late game, so I'll use 3 of them now. That's the total that I have, going up to level 34 before fighting the rival again. This time using Revenge for slightly more damage against the Staravia. At a higher level, I'm able to 2-shot. Because its Endeavor dealt less damage this time, I have a little bit more health left over, and I am using the Shell Bell to recover some health every turn. Plus, the AI does not know when you have the ability Dry Skin, so it will attack your Pokemon with Water Gun first. This is what the Buizel does, healing my Croagunk just a little bit. I knock it out over 2 turns. I have green health left over for the Ponyta, which I can use Earthquake against. Next is Grottle. This thing's annoying. It takes forever to knock out. In this case, I'm actually kind of happy that I assigned him the Grass type starter. It's pretty tough, and in this case, I only barely win. If he had Monferno during this fight, I would have one-shot using Earthquake. So I do think the Grass type starter is the most difficult one for Croagunk to face. This challenge continues to surprise me. Earthquake's nice for double battles. I can knock out both the Pokemon at the same time, except Bonsly survives. That's really annoying. And then Starly levels up, wasting a bunch of time. I can't avoid this fight. It is mandatory, by the way. Ruin Maniac Calvin has the most annoying Pokemon, Bronzor. I hate this thing. It is so frustrating. Luckily, Revenge does neutral damage, so I can knock it out over 2 turns. And then I have Earthquake to absolutely obliterate the Shieldon. I end up fighting Gregory to get the Fist Plate, but I don't think that in this challenge I end up using the item, so I probably should have skipped it to save a little bit of time. This brings us back around to the Rock Tomb TM that I talked about earlier. After defeating Ace Trainer Maya, I have to face Dennis, who has a Drift Blim, and my current set, Return, Substitute, Revenge, and Earthquake, have no moves that can hit this Ghost Flying type, so I need to teach Rock Tomb in the place of Substitute so that I can deal damage to it. Also, it's nice having Rock Tomb since it doesn't make contact, so Aftermath doesn't deal damage to Croagunk. With this move, Dennis is no issue, and I make my way into Veilstone City. Okay, I have some experience playing Heart Gold, and those games are teaching me things that are relevant to Pokemon Platinum, since all Generation 4 games share the same TM and HM list, and a lot of the positions of these TMs are sometimes analogous. For example, the move Focus Blast, which is a fighting type move that deals special damage and has a base power of 120. The only downsides are the fact that it has 70% accuracy and 5 PP. But in Heart Gold, I have found so many instances where this move would be useful against Red at the very end of the game. Today though, I think this might be my go-to fighting type move if I want to utilize Nasty Plot. So I stop by the department store and buy 2 of these TMs so that I'll have flexible access to this move throughout the rest of the game. Inside the gym, Croagunk levels up to 37 where it evolves into Toxicroak. This really does change up its base stat distribution. It has 83 HP, 85 speed, 106 attack, but only 86 special attack, and it has 65 in both its defense and special defense. The big change here is that Toxicroak is more physically oriented. Now you'll notice that I'm holding the amulet coin to gain more money. Another thing that comes along with this evolution is a major change up to its TM and HM learn set. I didn't go through this earlier in the challenge because I wanted to wait for this moment where we evolved. It still gets moves like Earthquake, Dig, Shadow Ball, Ball and Brick Break. But in addition to these moves, it gets a bunch of dark type moves because apparently this thing was supposed to be a dark type. Anyways, I got sidetracked. It also gets Swords Dance, what has been the best setup move up until this point in Pokemon Platinum. But I think that the physically boosting move has a disadvantage that Nasty Plot doesn't have. When you're boosting your physical attack, sometimes you have to overcome Intimidate debuffs, which is always frustrating to work around. It wastes one extra turn. That's one thing working against Swords Dance. The other thing working against Swords Dance is the fact that if you set up with it and then get confused, you potentially will deal massive damage to yourself. And that can be a risk when I have to go up against a bunch of Golbats, which I don't really have good damage against unless I want to run Rock Slide and chance missing occasionally. Also, Cyrus does have a Crobat, and it's very fast. For these reasons, I think in an abstract theoretical world, Nasty Plot is actually the superior setup move, and it's probably the best move in the game. But right now, I have 4 physical moves, so it's not going to be that useful. Anyways, let's face Maylene. This one's going to be really easy, by the way. Meditite is first, it's a psychic type, it does have confusion, but Toxicroak is faster, it uses Earthquake and crushes her lead. Next is Lucario. Earthquake one-shots, that leads to Machoke, but this intimidating, terrifying fighting type Pokemon just goes for Focus Energy, and I knock it out over 2 turns. Okay, did someone notice the problem that happened? When I evolved, my ability changed to Anticipation. This is not how Pokemon is supposed to work. I have seen this pop up before in my solo challenges, and it is because of how I do these runs. Everything is happening in real time. I'm not like pausing the game, opening my save file in PK Hex, and then editing my ability. It is automatically assigned by my software, but the way I'm doing this is I'm simply overwriting the Pokemon's ability. However, this parameter when evolving is not actually assigned based on which ability was previously on the Pokemon. It is assigned by another parameter, the personality ID. If I don't change this value and the ability, then when the evolution takes place, its ability will switch, which is what happened here. Now, this is an error. I did want to have Dry Skin, and I should have Dry Skin at this point in the game. This is all going to matter in about a minute. Before that, I have to head towards Pastoria City. While I'm doing this, I'm picking up Heart Scales. The reason is I want to be able to use the move reminder to get access to Nasty Plot in just a second. First though, I'm going to defeat the rival. This one's pretty easy. Rock Tomb knocks out the Staravia, and from there everything is more manageable than it was last time around. I have full health by the time the Grottle comes in, and this time around, Return is doing a lot more damage, so I can knock it out in less turns. It doesn't even get Toxicroak out of green health. Okay, inside the gym, I'm able to learn Poison Jab in the place of Rock Tomb. So I have a same type attack bonus Poison type move, and it is also the best damage when all of my moves deal neutral damage. But this isn't going to be a great strategy against Crasher Wake since his first Pokemon is Gyarados. So I'm going to backtrack to the move reminder and teach Nasty Plot in the place of Revenge. Then in front of Crasher Wake, I save the game, and I teach Focus Blast in the place of Return. Okay, so I'm not going to roll the intro just yet. I do want to show you a battle against Crasher Wake though. I tried this one with Anticipation just to see how it was going to go. If he hadn't defeated me, I would have just continued playing with this ability, but no, this fight is brutal when you don't have Dry Skin, and I wanted to have Dry Skin from the beginning of the playthrough. So since this is a bug with my software that I'm going to be fixing after this challenge, I simply reset the timer and my reset counter and then went back into the battle using Dry Skin. Now we can roll the intro. Crasher Wake's lead is Gyarados. I have Nasty Plot and Focus Blast for this fight. I don't have to care about the Intimidate debuff, and then I'm going to be using Focus Blast to hopefully one-shot all of his Pokemon. Although with only +2 special, I'm just barely not able to finish off the Gyarados. This kind of damage range is going to haunt me later on. Luckily, the only moves he can do damage to me with are Bite and Twister, but instead he seems focused on using Waterfall for some reason. I set up to +6 because of that, then use Focus Blast to one-shot the Gyarados. Quagsire's next. Focus Blast gets another one hit leading to his ace, Floatzel. Okay, I'm not missing apparently. My third Focus Blast also hits, and that's that. An easy Crasher Wake. Okay, let's talk about the girl that blocks the Psyducks, because she's been burning me lately, which is so annoying. One thing you can do here is just use a Repel, stay in the grass, then walk all the way to the right, go north after that, and completely skip her. This is way more reliable than trying to wait for her to not spin the right direction. It's basically random the movements she picks when you're playing on 4x speed, so this is going to be the way to skip her in every challenge after this. In the foggy area, I pick up the TM for Shadow Ball. Now, here is my plan with Nasty Plot. If I'm running Focus Blast, I also need other special moves to combo with it so that I can set up and not have to rely on physical damage. If I teach Shadow Ball in the place of Poison Jab, then I have decent coverage with fighting and ghost type moves together. This is neutral coverage against every single opponent. I just don't really want to be forced into using Focus Blast if it's possible to avoid. But Earthquake's good coverage even though it doesn't synergize with Nasty Plot. Cyrus 1 is next. He's so easy. Set up Nasty Plot on the Sneasel, max out my special attack, and then use Shadow Ball to knock out all of his Pokemon. The Sneasel takes a little bit. I didn't want to use Focus Blast just in case I missed, but after that I one-shot the Golbat and the Murkrow. I collect some rare candies, and then I face the rival in Canalave City. Once again, Nasty Plot is great. I don't have to worry about the Staraptor's Intimidate wasting an extra turn to set up with Swords Dance. I can just spam Nasty Plot while it sets up Double Team and then knock it out. From there, the remainder of his team members are all one-shots. Okay, so as I head to the Iron Island, I want you to look at Toxicroak's level up learn set. At 49, it's going to learn Sludge Bomb, which is a special poison type move. This is how I'm going to complete my set. However, this move is not useful against Byron or the trainers in his gym, which all use steel types. So conveniently, Toxicroak is only level 46, and I think I can get through the entire gym without it leveling up and learning Sludge Bomb. With Focus Blast, I'm able to one-shot Ace Trainer Caesar's Scissor. Earthquake is good against Black Belt David's Steelixes. It takes 2 shots to knock both of them out, but they can't do much damage to Toxicroak. After that, Brianna's Bronzors, which I'm also realizing is an alliteration. Cool. Good job, developers, or localizers, I guess in this case. They're a bit scary because they have extra sensory, which can do a lot of damage. However, after one Nasty Plot, Shadow Ball can one-shot the first 2 and then 2-shot the third one. Toxicroak does make it through with nice health. Now, it's time for the worst gym leader in the entire region, Byron. Magneton's first, Earthquake one-shots. Steelix is second, I use Focus Blast, it doesn't miss, and I one-shot. Last is Bastiodon, both Earthquake and Focus Blast do 4 times damage. Focus Blast has an outrageous effective power of 720, but I figured Earthquake would be more than enough, so I use it for accuracy purposes, and yes, I do get the one-shot. That's a clean sweep. Commander Saturn, really easy. Commander Mars, also really easy. You know who's not easy? This random girl who catches me while I'm going through the snowy area. She has a Golduck and it has Confusion. Luckily, Golduck is not a psychic type, even though that makes no sense. It does so much damage with this move. It brings Toxicroak all the way down to red health after hail damage. And I don't have any healing items. I was lucky that I had set up with Nasty Plot, and I now have Sludge Bomb. With it, I'm able to knock out the Rapidash, and then I used Shadow Ball to knock out the Sudowoodo, luckily getting a one-shot. There is one more mandatory trainer before I get to the bed to heal. It's this guy who has Tropius. Luckily, I'm able to one-shot using Sludge Bomb. I heal up, and then I save because Dalton is next. He is so annoying. His Electabuzz paralyzes Toxicroak, and then because of that and Dry Skin improving the damage from the Magmar's Flamethrower, I take not 1, but 2 losses here. I actually had to remove the Shell Bell and equip a Cherry Berry so that I could avoid the status condition and beat him. It is ridiculous when you have to use an item like that to get through a random trainer. I really need to get him art. With the way cleared, Candace is next. Sneasel is her first Pokemon, giving me a free chance to set up with Nasty Plot. Now it does have Aerial Ace, which is super effective, but it's not doing outrageous damage. I set up to +4, and then I knock it out using Sludge Bomb. Piloswine falls to a single Shadow Ball, so does the Frostlass, leaving only Abomasnow, which takes super effective damage from Sludge Bomb, so I one-hit. Another really easy gym leader. Okay, Cyrus 2, let's talk speed stats in Pokemon Platinum. Right now his Crobat has 145. My Toxicroak only has 127. Here's the thing, the Crobat is one of the fastest Pokemon in the entire game. The fastest Pokemon in the game is Lucian's Alakazam with 156 speed. Under that is Cyrus's Crobat with 151 inside the Distortion world, and then Cynthia's Garchomp with 150. If I just use rare candies now, I have a total of 12. I am easily gonna level up and outspeed pretty much everything in the late game. While I'm not faster than Alakazam right now, I do have 155 speed, and Toxicroak is obviously gonna continue leveling up before I fight the Psychic type specialist. After these rare candies, Cyrus is really easy. Saturn's trivial, and now with Nasty Plot, I was feeling really confident. So I'm gonna start skipping rare candies that I normally pick up. I think in Pokemon Platinum, one of the ways that I'll improve Pokemon's times and make the late game more interesting is by skipping rare candies that take a lot of time. For example, this one would require one optional battle, and there is a spinner I also have to be careful to avoid, so it could be potentially 2. Plus, I have to use Rock Climb twice, and HMs are not particularly quick. Okay, at the top of Mount Coronet, I have to face 2 Bronzor at once. These things are annoying. I set up one too many turns. With +4 from Nasty Plot, I take too much damage from Extra Sensory and take a quick reset. I thought the solution might be using Nasty Plot once, but then I just can't knock out the Bronzors with a single hit from Shadow Ball, so apparently that's not the solution. What ends up happening that gives me the win here is they just attack the Munchlax instead of Toxicroak. Because of that, I have more than enough health to finish off both of the Pokemon with Psychic type moves, and the remaining team members are simple to clean up. Time for Cyrus in the Distortion world. This is probably the most difficult fight in most of Pokemon Platinum playthroughs. Not in this one. The most difficult fight is still ahead. And believe me, it is not going to be who you expect. Here's another reason why Nasty Plot is superior to Swords Dance. When you're setting up, you can potentially do it against Houndoom. If you get hit by Will-O-Wisp, you don't really care because of your physical damage being cut. The only downside to the status condition is that you'll lose health every turn. I decided to take things a different way. I wanted to knock out the Houndoom right away and avoid Will-O-Wisp entirely, but Sludge Bomb just barely doesn't have enough damage. But it does poison, then Houndoom misses Will-O-Wisp and I knock it out, so that's easy. From there, I set up on the Gyarados. Again, I can get to +4, whereas Swords Dance would have got to only +3. My logic around this was that Toxicroak's higher attack stat would be basically offset by the Intimidates in battles like this. So using Nasty Plot is roughly identical, and I have upside on things like Will-O-Wisp. If the Houndoom had hit me, then I wouldn't have worried about it. With the Shell Bell, I can gain back some health, and the remaining Pokemon on Cyrus's team are all 1 hits at +4. Okay, time for the last gym leader, Volkner. I'm using a Cherry Berry here, then I can set up with Nasty Plot once and sweep his team. He's easy, what did you expect? Again, we have to focus more attention on random NPCs. Ace Trainer Mariah has a Blissey, which has outrageous special defense, and it also likes to set up a light screen. By the way, I know that there are some problems with the display for status conditions on the enemy Pokemon in the top right. You can see that when I poison the Blissey, it says that it's burned. I'll have to fix that in the future. In this case, Nasty Plot just allows me so much setup that the Blissey doesn't end up being a problem. It can't spam soft-boiled and save itself. Okay, the theme continues. Random trainers. Ace Trainer Omar. He has a Mamoswine, a Mothim, and a Rampardos. Normally he's easy to sweep, but this time the Mamoswine freezes me with Blizzard, and Toxicroak just refuses to defrost. Because of that, I have to take my first blackout in the run, because I didn't save before him. Luckily, he's easy to get revenge against, because he doesn't freeze Toxicroak again. Now, I'm about to make a critical choice for this playthrough. Do I pick up Dark Pulse or do I skip it? If I'm going to continue running Nasty Plot, which I would like to do, I don't have to backtrack to the game corner, spend time getting the coin case, spend time buying coins, then buying Swords Dance, and teaching it in the place of Nasty Plot. Plus, I can't get Earthquake back at this point in the playthrough because there's only one of those TMs in the game. So I'm going to lock in and continue using the Nasty Plot strategies. Now, with my current set, I have good coverage against everything, but Dark Pulse has a secondary effect which I would like to have access to later in the game, which is a chance to flinch. So I will pick it up just to be a little bit overly safe. Time to conclude the Rivals storyline in this video. I am convinced that Torterra is the most challenging battle that I can do in this playthrough. I would have simply stomped the Monferno earlier on with Earthquake, and by this point in the game it just doesn't even matter. I set up with Nasty Plot and then the remainder of his team is easy. No matter what starter he had, this would be the case. You might be thinking, what about the Empoleon since it is a steel type? Well, I have Focus Blast. That definitely would one-shot. I guess I could miss, but if I'm running Dry Skin, then the Empoleon's also going to be pretty bad throughout earlier stages of the run. I just think no matter which way you slice this, the Rivals team doesn't match up very well against Toxicroak. With him defeated and one big surprise on the horizon, Toxicroak is now ready to go into the league. Aaron is up first. Nasty Plot a little bit right at the beginning while Yanmega sets up with Double Team. It's doing decent damage with Air Slash, so I better get to knocking it out. I could potentially lose here if I miss too many times in a row, but I don't. Then I Focus Blast the Drapion, it hits. I miss a bunch against the following Scissor, but when it really counts and Toxicroak is on low health, it hits, and that's that. The remaining two Pokemon are both one-shots using Sludge Bomb. Now, Bertha is the scariest Elite Four member in pretty much every playthrough of Pokemon Pokemon Platinum, so I decided to use my rare candies prior to fighting her, bringing Toxicroak up to level 77. I'm all out of these items, so this is going to be the maximum possible level unless I black out and do more training against ace trainers that I skipped or wild Pokemon. But I really don't want to do that. Toxicroak should be fine with Nasty Plot. In this case, the Whiscash is actually kind of scary because it has Zen Headbutt, which does 4 times damage. I was a little bit worried about setting up here. In the end, I do go for 1 turn of Nasty Plot, and Zen Headbutt doesn't do as much damage as I was expecting. I can tank 1 more hit and get set up to +4, and then use Shadow Ball to knock out her lead. Gliscor is next. Shadow Ball takes care of it in a single turn. Hippowdon comes in, brewing up a Sandstorm, but my Shell Bell is going to help me recover health. This item has actually been really great for Toxicroak throughout this playthrough, and it's going to continue to put in serious work. Shadow Ball's special, so it one-hits the Golem, and the Rhyperior is no different. This time around with a poison type, Bertha was easy. See, I told you it was not going to be who you expected. Maybe you're expecting the awful trainer to be Flint because he's a fire type and I have dry skin. No, it's not. He's always bad. I just set up with Nasty Plot. He uses Sunny Day, and while I'm taking damage, this doesn't matter when I have the Shell Bell. I just sweep his team with +2 and Sludge Bomb. Okay, Lucian, gonna be awful, right? Yes, the answer is yes. He's a Psychic type specialist. All of his Pokemon do 4 times damage. I wanted to set up Nasty Plot here with my Dark type Pokemon. Really feels like Toxicroak should be a Dark type Pokemon and not struggling here anyway. I wanted to set it up, but then the Mr. Mime's Psychic does massive damage. I am left with 9 hit points, and I'm very surprised I even survived that. So, with +4 and Shadow Ball, can I sweep Lucian's team? Mr. Mime goes down to a single hit. Bronzong, my nemesis, comes out next. This thing is ridiculously defensive and specially defensive, so it survives Shadow Ball and knocks Toxicroak out with Earthquake. Okay, so if I can't set up on the Mr. Mime, what can I do if I have to 2-shot the Bronzong? Well, I thought maybe I could set up Nasty Plot just once and then go for the sweep. The problem then is that the Bronzong is taking less than half damage, giving it time to use Calm Mind. And this is one downside of running the Nasty Plot set. If the opponent can increase their special defense with a move like Calm Mind, then you're at an even bigger disadvantage. So I take another reset with Toxicroak. Looks like I'm gonna be stuck here, right? Well, wrong. Sometimes the Mr. Mime will set up Reflect instead of Light Screen. Because of that, the special defense of Bronzong is lower, and then I get a critical hit with Shadow Ball, but I would have 2-shot either way. As a result of knocking out Lucian's most defensive Pokemon, with +2, I can then sweep using Shadow Ball, knocking out Gallade, Espeon, and Alakazam. So we didn't get stuck on Lucian, although it was a little bit bumpy. There's only 1 battle left. Let's take on Cynthia. Are you feeling deceived right now? You're like, Scott, Toxicroak hasn't got stuck at anyone we didn't anticipate it to. It did have a bumpy time against Lucian, but it crushed Flint, and it beat Bertha, but I was expecting it to be bad against Bertha since it's a poison type. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be bad against Cynthia. Her lead is Spiritomb, a Pokemon that is usually defensive, and oh my gosh, it does ridiculous damage whenever it attacks with Psychic. This destroyed my spirits after I saw how much damage it did in the first fight. I am only getting set up to +2 against this thing. Then using Shadow Ball, I can't knock it out. That's really bad, because then it uses a second Psychic and finishes Toxicroak. I realized 2 things right away. Number 1, I should be using Swords Dance by this point in the playthrough. If I had the benefit of my higher attack stat, and I could leverage that against the Spiritomb, I would likely one-shot after a single turn of setup, because I am bringing it to red health every turn when using a move like Shadow Ball or Dark Pulse. And that was my second realization. I am going to need to flinch. Dark Pulse has a 20% chance of flinching, but there's also upside because I could critical hit, which is what happens in my 3rd battle against Cynthia. So now I get to move on and see my damage ranges against her other Pokemon. I use Sludge Bomb on the Togekiss. It isn't a fairy type yet, but I still do enough damage to one-shot, which is really encouraging. Toxicroak levels up to 79, and then Garchomp comes in. Now I don't think the Dark Pulse will do enough damage, so I went for Focus Blast, and unfortunately I miss. This is a problem again. If I'm running the special set, then I have to use Focus Blast to knock out the Garchomp, and that makes all of this just a little bit more risky. If I was running a physical set, I would have more damage with neutral moves like Earthquake and not have to chance the accuracy. So back to fighting the Spiritomb. I don't flinch. Spiritomb gets a critical hit, and when this happens, it one-shots. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it gets a critical hit 2 times in a row. No, 3 times in a row. Then I fail to flinch, and finally at long last, I pull it off. But I learned something here. When I flinch the Spiritomb, Cynthia is going to use a full restore, so then I have to use 2 follow-up Dark Pulses to knock it out. I didn't know that she was going to use the healing item, but if she is going to do that every single time, I should squeeze in one more nasty plot to get to +4 before proceeding to our other Pokemon. I was curious if I would survive a hit from the Togekiss's Air Slash, and the answer is no, I won't, so I can't set up here. I have to do it on the Spiritomb. In the very next fight, I wasn't paying attention, and Dark Pulse flinches again. Unfortunately, he uses a full restore and I spam Dark Pulse, knocking out the Spiritomb. So I have to resort to using Sludge Bomb. It one-shots the Togekiss. By the way, that's going to be important in just a little bit. Next is Garchomp, and you already know. No, you don't actually. Focus Blast hits and it one-shots. The problem is the Milotic that follows. I go for Sludge Bomb and it just barely doesn't have enough damage. Again, if I was using physical damage, that would have been a one-shot. And the problem of using special damage here is that Milotic knows I'm using special moves, and it uses Mirror Coat, finishing Toxicroak. Fail to flinch to the Spiritomb 1, 2, 3 times. I decided to save on a different tile so that I have a different RNG seed for Cynthia because things are going really badly. I fail to flinch only one more time, and then I'm able to knock out the Spiritomb, but this time with a critical hit. Remember how I said this is upside? Yeah, it's not really upside, because then you only have +2 for the remainder of the battle. In this case, I have to Focus Blast both the Garchomp and the Milotic if I want a chance of winning. I also critical hit the Togekiss, which is important. There is a chance that I don't one-shot the Togekiss, I just haven't found that out yet. Focus Blast one-hits the Garchomp, and you'll see that I've done a bit of time traveling with this voiceover, because I didn't know that Sludge Bomb had a worse damage range on the Milotic. I was hoping that maybe it would roll better damage in one hit, but it doesn't, it rolls worse damage, and that convinced me that I needed to use Focus Blast after getting critical hits against the Spiritomb. In the next fight, I find out that I don't always one-shot the Togekiss with Sludge Bomb after +2. Sometimes it survives with a Sliver, uses Air Slash, and Toxicroak faints. As we watch me lose over and over and over again, I just want to say, this is the Cynthia that I was expecting to have to face when I first started playing Pokemon Platinum. She is definitely the best champion in the Pokemon series if you're playing the game with a well-rounded team. That said, I'm not. I'm only ever playing with one Pokemon, and there are so many rare candies available in this game, she's usually just completely trivial. I didn't expect to run into problems like this. Having to rely on a flinch chance on the Spiritomb is just awful. Critical hits don't really help. Then I have inaccurate moves like Focus Blast, and I can also fail damage ranges against things like the Togekiss in the case that I am critting. Everything here is just sort of awful. So let's examine, at least theoretically, what one of my other options would be at this point in the game. I could simply black out and then fight the Elite Four over and over again, leveling up to the point that Spiritomb is not able to two-shot Toxicroak, but that is gonna take a while. Right now it's bringing me down to around 1/3 health every time it attacks. I would have to level up like 7 to 10 times to start surviving 2 hits from Psychic. At this point in the run, realizing that I was stuck, realizing the mistake I had made not switching to Swords Dance earlier, I just doubled down and knew that I had to win using the flinch strategy off of Dark Pulse, even though it is theoretically suboptimal. It's just the best choice that I have available to me now. I really want to emphasize that I could win at any point, but I just continue to lose over and over. This was so frustrating. I tried other things like using +4 Dark Pulse against the Garchomp, but nope, that's not gonna one-hit. You think 50 faults is a lot? No, it's not. This fight's actually awful. The amount of luck that I need to get through is sort of absurd. At every moment, it felt like victory was just around the corner. One flinch, and then I'll get to +4 and have the chance to roll the dice with Focus Blast against the Garchomp. I was pretty sure if I get the dice roll that I need there, that I can then one-shot the Milotic using Sludge Bomb, because my damage range with +2 was pretty good. Unfortunately, I can miss Focus Blast when it really counts, and that just kept happening. So that is fault number 61. But what's 10 more? After fault number 71, I flinch the Spiritomb again. I get set up to +4, Dark Pulse one-shots, Sludge Bomb one-shots the Togekiss, Focus Blast does not miss on the Garchomp, and finally I make it to the Milotic again, this time with +4. However, there is another way to optimize this fight just in case the Lucario or the Roserade would be problematic. After all, the Roserade does have extra sensory. I know that the Milotic is going to be prioritizing Mirror Coat, so I can squeeze in one more use of Nasty Plot. This ensures that I will one-shot all 3 remaining Pokemon. So finally, after 71 faults, Toxicroak does it, knocking out Cynthia's final Pokemon. It clocks in with a final real time of 2 hours, 47 minutes, and 10 seconds, with 71 faults, consisting of 70 resets and 1 blackout. It beat the game at level 78 with a game time of 7 hours and 38 minutes. So Cynthia was quite the challenge challenge, I really didn't expect that. I thought that the Spiritomb being defensive would not be able to two-shot Toxicroak, and I was just obviously wrong. If I went back and did this run all over again, I would use Nasty Plot in combination with Focus Blast to beat Crasher Wake just a little bit more quickly. But then in the next section of the game, I would go back to Veilstone City, get myself Swords Dance, and convert to a physical set before the late game. As I have mentioned, there are downsides to using Swords Dance, and in some ways theoretically Nasty Plot is better. But for this specific challenge, I think that having the damage ranges against Cynthia matters much more, as you've seen, and as this screenshot shows. By the way, when we edit my videos, always Exceptional goes through and cuts up all of the basic battles so that we can see where the gym leaders and the rivals are. In this specific example, gym leaders are yellow, rivals are blue, enemy team leaders are a light pinky purple color, and then the darker purple is Elite 4 members. The champion is the teal color right at the end. Well done, Cynthia. You absolutely destroyed Toxicroak. But how much did she affect its results and its placement in the tier list? Well, first of all, if I ran Swords Dance, I think that Toxicroak would have been able to do better than my first playthrough result with Giratina, which was 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 50 seconds. But obviously, Cynthia completely stopped it from being able to achieve that. Another one of the leaders, Pokemon Perugly, got a time of 2 hours, 39 minutes, and 49 seconds, and it really struggled with Bertha. Unfortunately, Toxicroak wasn't able to get a result that was quite this good. However, it was able to beat out another poison type, Drapion, which had a time of 2 hours, 48 minutes, and 28 seconds. So Toxicroak earns itself a placement in the middle of the D tier, behind Abomasnow and ahead of Drapion. By the way, if you're wondering why Staraptor didn't fare so well, go and check out its first playthrough that I did. It was just at the beginning of my series. It's definitely inexperience, but also computer parts have factored into the fact that a lot of the more modern runs I'm doing are just getting better times. Overall, Staraptor should be a better Pokemon. And if you want to see it in another Generation 4 game, check out this video where I play Heart Gold using it. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video.